It's Sunday, October 12th, 2014, as we issue this emergency alert report. It has now been confirmed in Dallas, Texas, the site of patient Zero's death last week. A nurse who was treating him at the Presbyterian Medical Center in Dallas, Texas, has tested positive for contracting Ebola, the deadly virus ravaging hundreds of thousands of people right now, potentially could infect millions in Africa. And now it has spread in the United States, just as it spread last week to another nurse, a healthcare worker in Madrid, Spain. So there are several big questions, obviously, here, and several big issues. Why, for the first time ever, are they bringing Ebola patients into Western countries like Spain and the United States? Why, when other nations like England, France, and Arab countries as well have blocked flights out of countries being ravaged by Ebola, why has the United States not halted flights and is still not even doing basic screening at major airports?
Louis Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam, warning all of his followers that Ebola and AIDS were created by the U.S. government to depopulate the world's black population. Now, in this new bit of information that he's putting out here, Farrakhan wrote that Henry Kissinger created a plan in 1974 to kill black people, and now Ebola and AIDS are weapons that are being used to fulfill that policy. Farrakhan told followers that Kissinger said in 1974 depopulation should be the highest priority of foreign policy toward the third world.
Another big question, why did Obama lie to us and say virtually no chance it would come here? Why did the CDC say, hey, we can't control the border and we don't think it's going to spread? Why did the head of the Texas Medical Board come out last week and say that there was basically zero chance Ebola could spread?
Rick, what does population stabilization mean, and how do you seek to enforce that?
Well, we're not the epigones of Malthus, as some would have you believe, but the world population is a concern. The Associated Press just has an article today saying that the world population is going to reach 7 billion people by the year 2012. We're 6.7 billion people today. And so, you know, what it means for Americans is unrestrained population growth. I'm a baby boomer. I was born in the middle of the last century. The population in the country has doubled in my lifetime. Those kids in high school today are going to see 500 million people living in America. And the question we're asking is, why do we need to have this growth, and where's it coming from? And we've located the source. Over 80% of it is coming from immigration and the children that immigrants have.
Okay, so what do you propose? I'm going to go back to the basics here, because I'm just going to let you carry on with this crazy idea that people are bad and we should have fewer of them, because I actually like people. I want to have more people. But let's say you're right, okay? How do you enforce your worldview? Is this an international body that somehow mandates population growth? I mean, China's trying that with its one-child policy, and then after the big natural disaster there, they're going, oh, maybe this isn't such a good idea after all. We're going to lose population.
Our concern is about American population growth and, of course, California. With 37 million people in California today, going to be 60 million people in the next 2 to 3 decades.
So you have no idea. Rick, I can't. This is driving me crazy. You're driving me crazy.
Our idea
is have a plan, Rick? You're spouting off things from an office in California. This is my question. You're saying something very controversial here, and I hope people understand what you're saying. You think there should be fewer people in the United States? I'm trying to figure out which people are the undesirables. And you pointed out you think immigrants are undesirable. I guess illegal immigrants are undesirable, and all those children they have are undesirable. And I don't want illegal people here, but I don't want people to be killed either. So my question to you is, with your worldview,
this is unbelievable.
How do you enforce this one child per person utopia? How do you do it? Enough with the spouting. I don't want to hear that.
We don't use the word undesirable. What we want to do is to see the immigration laws enforced to cut down the numbers of the influx of illegal aliens into the country, which is driving almost all of the population growth in this country. We want the immigration laws enforced. We don't feel that it's a fair trade-off to leave open borders so employers can have access to cheap labor and to overpopulate the country for the future generation.
Okay, well, you and I agree about illegal immigration. Okay, we agree on one thing, that we need to enforce our borders, enforce our laws. But you go from that to saying, you know, population stabilization, which sounds a lot like population control, which sounds a lot like this crazy alarmism in the population bomb. I think wasn't that the book in the 70s? All their predictions turned out to be completely ridiculous and never came to pass. So I want you to be real careful here, Rick, and you don't get into that those very murky waters. I think that's a dangerous place for you to go. You don't have to go that far to argue that America's a sovereign country and we should enforce our borders. I don't think you have to go that far.
Well, that's true. We also don't need to get to the Malthusian apocalypse or the predictions of the population bomb to understand that overpopulation decreases standards of living. We have problems with healthcare, education. Standards of living is increasing around
the world. People are living longer around the world, Rick. The population, is going up, but we actually also have people who are being born who come up with cures for diseases, who innovate, who become entrepreneurs, and become, wonderful, loving people who pass down a culture to the next generation. So I would agree with you. You have to manage these things, but the idea that you can somehow through I guess argument or column writing or whatever it is that you do, that somehow you're going to stop people from having children. I don't think that's the problem. I think it's standing up for your country and sovereignty, and that's fine. Do you see what I'm saying?
Our goal is to remind people that the population continues to grow faster than India or China, and that the source of that population growth is unrestrained immigration and the federal government not enforcing the immigration law. That's what's causing it. People are good. I've heard the argument, waiting for the mythical Mozart. Yes, there's possibly geniuses that haven't been born yet. But we're worried about this country and the future generations of this country and what they're going to have to deal with if we don't get control of our borders and our population.
Okay, but why are you focusing on the borders, though? If it's overpopulation, why does the borders even come into it? It's across the board. It's white, brown, and black, right? Or is it just brown-skinned people who you don't think should be born? Okay, but why are you focusing on the borders, though? If it's overpopulation, why does the borders even come into it? It's across the board. It's white, brown, and black, right? Or is it just brown-skinned people who you don't think should be born? White, brown, and black, right? Or is it just brown-skinned people who you don't think should be born? White, brown, and black, right? Or is it just brown-skinned people who you don't think should be born?
White, brown, and black, right? Or is it just brown-skinned people who you don't think should be born?
Not at all. With us, it's not
you're focusing on illegal immigration, and I think that gets you into a really, really murky territory. And I appreciate. We're out of time.
Over 80% of our population growth is coming from immigrants and the children they have. That's where we want to see the federal government focus its efforts to enforce the borders and to cut down the numbers that are coming into the country.
And enforce the borders, yes. Don't use words like population stabilization. I get very protective over people living. I appreciate it, though. You're a stand-up guy to join us. And
when we know it's been spreading like wildfire in Africa, and many scientists, many virologists, even in the New York Times, have come out and said it may have already begun to go somewhat airborne. So to be clear, there is now an official outbreak of Ebola in the United States. And if this healthcare worker was in a full hazmat suit, you better believe that the children, the wife, the neighbors, the children at the school where these other children went, are all obviously in danger. And I think it's safe to say what we said a week and a half ago when this news first broke. The odds are this has spread to wider groups of people. And patient 0, who's now dead, Thomas Eric Duncan, who died last Wednesday, is not the only one. And now that speculation has been confirmed
by the news that a healthcare worker in Texas has tested preliminarily positive for infection with Ebola virus.
CNN headline, Texas nurse tests positive for Ebola, would be first Ebola transmission in the United States. Dallas Morning News, healthcare worker at Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas tests positive for Ebola. CDC protocol breached in treating Ebola patient, Associated Press. And that's the big point that has to be made here out of all these important issues. The default position of not bringing Ebola patients into the United States, that was violated for the first time when I pointed this out, when other people pointed this out, when the Drudge Report pointed this out. Mainstream media demonized us and criticized us and said, how dare you not want to bring Ebola patients here? You must be racist. How dare you fearmonger and say people could be coming across the border with it? Well, now a nurse who is in full hazmat gear has contracted it at the hospital where this person was for a week. And remember, they didn't clean the ambulance for days. They sent some of the kids to school for days, even after they knew Patient 0, who's now dead, had Ebola. Evidence is also mounting that the CDC is lying to the American people. Foreign press reported that Mr. Duncan had died a day before and that the CDC was basically covering it up, and that forced them the next day to claim that he died Wednesday morning. There's major evidence that we're being lied to. Evidence is also mounting that the CDC is lying to the American people. Foreign press reported that Mr. Duncan had died a day before and that the CDC was basically covering it up, and that forced them the next day to claim that he died Wednesday morning. There's major evidence that we're being lied to. There's major evidence that we're being lied to.
And here you will see 110% proof that in Liberia they are faking this just as much as they are faking it here in the United States. You might even say the crisis actors are even a step down. I don't know. They're painfully obvious. So let's take a look at this unbelievable little charade that they try to pull off here. Yeah. There you go. Got Ebola. So you got this ambulance that's got its doors open, and there's a couple patients in there. They took off their clothes. They just make it more real, and you know, it's so absurd. It's so ridiculous. Good job, guys. Awesome. Am I on camera? I better look like I'm sick. Oh, I'm so sick. I'm so sick. Oh. And here you go. Watch what happens. Look at this. What's he doing? Oh, he's just so sick. Oh, the poor guy. Right? Poor guy. And this is the kicker. This cinches it 100%. There you go. The naked boy. The naked boy. The naked man. You know? Flopping down on the ground, pretending that they're sick. This was aired on CNN, I think in Liberia itself. Somebody caught it on a cell phone. They caught this image. CNN pulled this from their site because they got caught red-handed. 110% fabricating Ebola bullshit. Let's just watch that again so you don't get any confusion, okay? And you have to ask yourself, why the hell would they be leaving guys in the back of the ambulance like this? You know, half naked, or almost fully naked, except for the shirt he's got on. Well, there's only one reason. It's for the cameraman. That's what it's for. It's for to sell inside Liberia's Ebola crisis. Oh. There you go, the kid. Yeah, I'm ready. Take my spot. There we go. Busted. Totally busted, okay? This thing is fake. The whole thing is fake. It's all fake. Everything is fake about this, okay? You don't believe me? Why don't you check out the New York Times? Oh my word. This is just unfreaking believable here. This
Ebola patients are being brought in. They're not following proper protocols, and it's spreading. And when we point out that the southern border should be highly controlled as well as the northern border, and that everyone who was on this flight with him should be put in containment, we're called conspiracy theorists for following the default federal law. So clearly, elements of our government want this crisis to get out of control. The good news is the head of Southcom, the U.S. military branch that oversees Central and South American U.S. interest, came out last week and said the big threat is Ebola coming across the southern border.
Many countries in the Western Hemisphere have about no ability to deal with an Ebola outbreak. We have a lot of West Africans, of the Homeland Security folks doing their work on our southwest border. Of the number of people they capture, a very large percentage of them are West African. I was down in Costa Rica a couple of weeks ago talking to our embassy personnel. One of them relayed a story to me. But there were 5 or 6 black guys that were there at the border waiting in line to pass into Nicaragua and then on the way north. And the embassy person walked over and just asked who they were. And they said, well, we're from Liberia. Been on the road about a week. And we're on the way to New York City, illegally. So they're on the network. They had flown into, I think, Trinidad, and then met up with the traffickers, and now they're on the way in. They could have made it to New York City and still be within the incubation period of Ebola. That if there's an outbreak in the Caribbean, particularly, or in Central America, it will make the 68,000 unaccompanied children, I think, look like a small problem.
The UN estimates run from 1.4 million to 5 million people in Africa alone by December who will contract Ebola. Undoubtedly, many of them will try to flee to the West. Other countries, including African nations, are not letting them in because that's default common sense. So now the U.S. is the dumping ground of people who have contracted Ebola, and now it's confirmed to be spreading in the United States. We, the people, have to take action. Call Congress, call the media, call the White House, call the CDC, and say, listen, you follow federal law, you follow the defaults, and you quarantine the people that have been in contact. You shut that border, you stop those flights, or you will be held accountable when this spreads and they're quarantining hundreds of thousands or millions of U.S. citizens and North Americans. This appears to be a false flag that they've bare minimum allowed to spiral out of control as a pretext for more medical tyranny here in the United States and worldwide. Finally, I want to leave you with a clip that our reporters got last week with the head of the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, Executive Commissioner Kyle Janik, saying to the legislature that there's zero danger, even if Ebola was on the table right in front of him. It's clear they're trying to pacify the public and cover up what's happening, not to stop panic, but to stop a real response.
There is virtually no risk. You can push me as far as you want to say zero. I will not say zero. It's knowing what I know. There is zero risk. I said it. There it is. I shouldn't say that. There's no risk. There's no risk. Ebola virus could be sitting there, and if I'm touching it with unbroken skin, it's not a risk.
Well, folks, we've put the facts out here. We've been proven right again. Now it's up to you to take action and raise the alarm. We'll take you back now to the radio studio where David Knight is live breaking this down and taking your phone calls right here in Austin, Texas, and worldwide.
But why are you focusing on the borders, though? If it's overpopulation, why does the borders even come into it? It's across the board. It's white, brown, and black, right? Or is it just brown-skinned people who you don't think should be born? White, brown, and black, right? Or is it just brown-skinned people who you don't think should be born? White, brown, and black, right? Or is it just brown-skinned people who you don't think should be born?
White, brown, and black, right? Or is it just brown-skinned people who you don't think should be born?